of unanswered questions this morning as it relates to this case. So we want to bring in New York City trial attorney Eric Subin to further dissect the very latest. Eric, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well. So, Eric, this case has garnered a lot of media attention, to say the least, but there might be someone out there who knows nothing about this case. Could you set it up? How did we get to this point? What is the issue at hand?
All right. Well, early morning, December 4th in Midtown Manhattan, a masked gunman with a handgun that turns out to have been a ghost gun with a suppressor, which is a silencer, fired multiple rounds back of the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, Brian Thompson, ultimately killing him. He then escaped from the scene of that crime. This occurred very early morning, around 6 a.m., escaped by bicycle, and then ultimately by video tracking. The police believe that he boarded a bus and most likely left New York thereafter. And there was a manhunt underway. Photos of the person of interest, which matches Luigi Mangione's description, were plastered everywhere all over the world. And eventually someone called in a tip from a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, that led the police in Altoona to approach this person who apparently matched the identity of Luigi Mangione. Mr. Mangione presented a false ID that said his name was Mark Rosario and that he resided in New Jersey. That was the same false ID that the suspect in the shooting of Brian Thompson had used to check into a hostel in New York before the killing. The police in New York had found shell casings at the scene of the murder. Those shell casings matched the ballistics report to the gun that was found on Luigi Mangione, the ghost gun. And they also found at the scene of the crime a water bottle and a Kind bar wrapper, and they were able to match DNA and fingerprints from those to Luigi Mangione. So that puts him at the scene, and it puts the gun in his possession as the gun that was used for this shooting, because the shell casings that were taken from the scene match it ballistically.
Eric, thank you so much for that detailed breakdown. I can tell you across X and across social media, there have even been conspiracy theories as it relates to this case. I think the first one I saw related to the suspect photos. You saw one person on one side, another person on another, and they're saying, is this the same person or is it two different people? People were dissecting things to the shape of the nose, to the color of the backpack, the shape of the backpack, to also the jacket that was being worn.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you do a deep enough dive into the internet, you're always going to find conspiracy theorists. But by all accounts, it seems, by all non-conspiracy theorist accounts, it seems like this was a person who was acting alone, and it was a targeted assassination. I mean, there was, Brian Thompson was the CEO of a major healthcare provider. Luigi Mangione, on his person when he was arrested, had a manifesto ranting against CEOs of healthcare providers, saying, what is it you're supposed to do with these guys? They act like gangsters. You got to whack them. That he mentioned using a bomb to do so, but said that innocent persons might be, affected by that. So it would be cleaner to use a firearm to do so. So assuming that Luigi Mangione is the right guy, it looks by all accounts that he acted alone, and it was not, there's nobody on the grassy knoll, essentially.
Well, Eric, we know at this time, Luigi does have representation. With your criminal expertise, you know law and order very well. Does his attorney have his work cut out for him, or would you say this is an open and shut case?
I would say both. His lawyer certainly has his work cut out for him because it looks like an open and shut case. They can tie the police, according to police reports, they can tie Luigi Mangione to the scene of this crime with forensic DNA evidence. They can also tie him to the gun they can tie the gun that was in his possession to the gun that was used in this crime based upon the shell casings that were found at the scene. They also, all of Manhattan has got video everywhere. They're able to get pictures of the person. They have video of the person committing the crime, and then they have video and photos of the person both before and after the crime was committed. And those, very clearly seem to be the exact same person, Luigi Mangione. They also have Luigi Mangione checking into a hostel under a false name using a false ID, and he had that same false ID on him at the time. So it is an extremely strong circumstantial case based upon what the police are revealing so far. And that's all irrespective of the fact that also on his person, he had a manifesto ranting and raving against the insurance industry as a whole and the CEOs of insurance industry, and saying what better way to get back at these insurance companies than to target their CEO at their annual bean counter conference. They're parasites. And if you go onto his social media, there's reports that he was fond of the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski, but didn't want to use a bomb, wanted to use a gun because he thought it was cleaner. So there's a lot to sort of point to Luigi Mangione as the assassin in this case. So there's certainly an uphill battle for the defense, but as his defense attorney said, this country does provide everybody the ability to be innocent until they're proven guilty. So they have to be able to go into the court of law and make sure all their evidence is in admissible form, and then convince 12 jurors that beyond a reasonable doubt, he's guilty of second-degree murder.
This Thursday, more new evidence is surfacing that police in New York say connects the suspect, Luigi Mangione, to the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. A notebook carried by the suspect could also contain even more clues. Fox News correspondent Connor Hansen joins us from New York to explain.
The NYPD says it has linked the ghost gun found on murder suspect Luigi Mangione to the Manhattan crime scene, along with even more evidence.
Fingerprints that we found on both the water bottle and the Kind bar near the scene of the homicide in Midtown.
Investigators have also recovered a spiral notebook that seems to shed light on the suspect's possible motive. The New York Times is reporting one passage in the notebook reads, quote, "What do? You whack the CEO at the annual parasitic bean counter convention. It's targeted, precise, and doesn't risk innocence." Those who know the suspect are now asking what would drive him to allegedly commit a brazen murder.
The Luigi that I knew and that so many classmates knew was a hardworking, driven, social kid who had everything going for him.
Investigators are looking into the suspect's recent back surgery and trying to piece together his whereabouts after friends and family lost contact with him months ago. Meanwhile, some are supporting the suspect, even offering to help with legal bills, according to his attorney.
Maybe these people are exercising their right to free speech and saying that's the way they're supporting my client.
The suspect is still being held in Pennsylvania, fighting a likely extradition to New York.
Now, one thing I want to say, it's actually interesting. Excuse me. They cut out the entire portion of that clip. In the original, he says if it's an expression of free speech for, these lobbyists to be able to support politicians financially, how then is it not an expression of free speech when the public chooses to, financially support him and all his legal troubles? And I think that's a fair point to make. And I particularly don't like the fact that they cut that part out. That's very disingenuous on their behalf. I think they should have been more fair and just been able to play out the entire clip of his attorney speaking. There's a lot of questions regarding this situation, and it's really intriguing. And but before we get into that, let's continue the clip.
New York, officials say he's in a maximum security cell by himself and is not under any kind of psychiatric watch. In New York, Connor Hansen, Fox News.
If you guys enjoy the video, you guys enjoy the content, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe. It helps me out a great deal. As you know, I'm a very small channel. I'm aiming to grow and, of course, inform the public, and so we can continue to have these conversations and engage in civil discourse. It's always a pleasure for me to speak with you guys. And yeah, man, if you guys have any thoughts, please feel free to post them in the comments section.